start our stories on the people of show business with a benefit for a serious disease, a new man at the top of the ABC TV team, and a musical birthday party. Exotic Hong Kong was the setting for an intimate little birthday party as American lyricist Sammy Cohn celebrated his 70th with a cake and with a song.
I'd say today is the loveliest day of the year, because it seems entertainment tonight has followed me here.
Cohn is working on a new Broadway musical, but he still enjoys playing some of his oldies.
Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. Let it snow, let it snow.
In New York, there was a smile on the face of ABC executive Anthony Thermopoulos. He's been promoted to president of the ABC Broadcast Group.
I think the Summer Olympics, the first time in 50 years coming to the United States, it will be in our country. It will be set in Los Angeles. I think will be one of the major television events of all time.
In the ratings war, Thermopoulos faces the challenge of putting ABC in the top spot.
We were, in my opinion, positioned to be number one if we had not had the NFL football strike this year, which we suffered and the other two networks didn't.
Debbie Reynolds, George Kirby, Shirley Maclaine, and Morgana King pooled their talents to battle a deadly disease. This fundraiser at San Francisco's Davies Symphony Hall has raised almost $100,000 to fight AIDS. That's acquired immune deficiency syndrome, and the money will go directly to research.
I had two friends of mine pass away while I was on tour. I have another dear friend of mine who yesterday told me he has it. Now, you know, it's just a very frightening thing, and we all should be very concerned.
With the disease spreading fast and government red tape slowing down federal grants, this is a chance for the private sector and the entertainers to help out.
Back home in the U.S., after a long stretch in England, Patricia Neal found time this week to share some confidences with Barbara Howard.
I think one has to have a certain amount of sense. One has to have a lot of humor. And I don't want the anger to win, in my case. It almost does, but I don't let it win.
From an outbreak of the measles, which took the life of her 7-year-old daughter, to a car accident which left her son severely brain damaged, Patricia Neal has had a lot to be angry about. But she's a survivor, and in 1965, she learned just how much of a survivor she was when tragedy struck her own life.
I was giving my daughter Tessa a bath when I had this horrendous stroke. And I was taken to the hospital by ambulance, and I was not expected to live. And I had 2 more strokes in the hospital. So I had 3 in all. And it was the last stroke that killed the vision out of this eye and paralyzed my arm and my leg. But I'm a lot better now.
She can laugh about it now, but her suffering was extreme. The stroke caught her at the peak of her career, less than a year after she won the Oscar as Best Actress for her performance in HUD.
Goodbye, honey. You take care of yourself. Don't you be lazy now.
Even though the first 2 years were just horrendous, I mean, I loathed life and loathed everybody. But then my husband wanted me to work again, so he sent me to New York to do the lead in The Subject Was Roses. And I didn't want to come, you know, and we got into rehearsal, and we rehearsed one day, and I loathed it. 2 days I loathed it. The third day I began to be interested. And at the end of the film, what a joy. What a joy. And it was a lovely thing that my husband insisted I do.
Although she and her husband, author Roald Dahl, weathered the tragic years together, their relationship has recently fallen apart. It's another obstacle for Neal to overcome.
I am horrified. It just happened. My husband, he adores another woman he has for years. So it is time for us to just start again our lives.
You're in the middle of a divorce. You've just moved back to a country you haven't lived in for 30 years. You're starting a new career. All these things are traumatic, and yet you're sitting there and smiling.
I have to smile. There's nothing else to do. Of course, I mean, at times I'm very bitter. I really am. It's just that in time, I guess one gets tired of it. And so your life has to go another way. And mine is beginning to go another way now.
From a longtime star to a star of the future, actress and singer Ellen Greene. She's not a household word yet, but Ellen hopes to make a name for herself in an unusual way, playing opposite a man-eating plant. Scott Osborne has this report.
23 years ago, Little Shop of Horrors emerged from Hollywood as an ultra-low-budget horror cult film. Last year, it resurfaced off-Broadway as a stage musical. Now, it's come home to Los Angeles. It's a strange story centered at Mushnick's Skid Row Florists and starring a bizarre bloom.
I'm giving you plant food.
It turns out the thing doesn't want plant food.
Feed me. Beg your pardon? Feed me.
It wants blood.
What do you want me to do, slit my wrists?
And eventually, a pittance of plasma won't do. The plant demands whole people. But if the play pivots on the plant, the showstopper is Ellen Greene. Her character, Audrey, is a beat-up blonde who longs for a different life.
December bright. His father, he knows best. Our kids watch Howdy Doody as the sun sets in the west. A picture out of Better Homes and Gardens magazine.
It's not easy upstaging a plant, but Ellen Greene does it gracefully. Hello?
Yes? Hello?
What's a nice girl like you doing in a plant like that?
Isn't it neat? I don't know. I know good places to go. Some people hang out in places. I hang out in plants. I'm a chameleon in a way. I like to become a character. And I loved giving birth to Audrey because I knew that she was my most accessible of all my roles so far. And I loved her so much, and I had a feeling people were going to like her.
Suddenly, Seymour.
I wanted her to be a child woman, woman, child. She's sort of a mixture of Gracie Allen and Marie Wilson, Judy Holliday, Marilyn Monroe, and a lot of me.
And what's next for Ellen Greene?
I would love to do a good straight face because most people think I have a Brooklyn accent. And I'm a blonde, they think. I'm really a brunette. I, of course, would love to do movies.
I dream we'll go somewhere that green.
So, Little Shop of Horrors has come home and brought a new star, Ellen Greene. Scott Osborne, Entertainment This Week.
Well, Maurice Micklewhite signed to make a new movie this week. You say you've never heard of Maurice? Well, maybe you know him better by his stage name, Michael Caine. A new book called Hello, My Real Name Is by Art Moger gives away Michael's secret. It also blows the whistle on Richard Jenkins, who became Richard Burton, Charles Buczynski, who found more work as Charles Bronson, and Michael Gubitosi, who went on to fame and fortune as Robert Blake. Well, Cheech Marin and Tommy Chong are a couple of movie stars who kept their real names, believe it or not. Robin Leach went to France for this report on the odd couple who sells lots of tickets to young people.
Hey, listen, man. You know that caviar you sent up today? Hey, man, it smells fishy.
Although panned by most critics, Cheech and Chong's irreverent brand of drug humor has made them a fortune. The worldwide gross of just 3 of their films is close to $300 million. Even in Europe, despite government censorship, Cheech and Chong have a large cult following.
You haven't heard of Cheech and Chong?
Yeah. No.
Where you been, under a rock?
Cheech and Chong's comedy relies heavily on drug jokes, so is it a coincidence they decided to shoot their last film, Still Smoking, in Amsterdam, unofficially known as the drug capital of Europe?
We found that out after we got there. We had no idea.
No idea.
No idea until one day I was walking by this little store and they were selling hash openly across the counter. I was just shocked out of my mind.
Amsterdam was merely the starting off point for Cheech and Chong's foray into Europe. They're now shooting a new film, The Corsican Brothers, in France, where Tommy Chong decided to plant permanent roots.
My kids are getting older, and especially my 8-year-old, and we needed to settle down somewhere and put him in school, and, you know, because he keeps, you know, doing weird things at the dinner table, so we thought we'd better get him some kind of education, you know, so the French know how to eat. We figured, well, hey, why not Paris?
He stopped eating with his feet, though. That was a real big step.
And he wears pants now.
He wears pants sometimes.
But you would have called California home for a long time.
Yeah.
Is it just because of your kids, or is it more than that?
We'd done California, you know, and we had reached a point in California, I think, where we were no longer favorite sons. You know how you are in the movie business, you know. They hate you for a while. The better our track record becomes, the freer we become. And the freer we become, the more, I mean, that's why we picked Paris, you know, instead of the Universal back lot or whatever, you know. It's much nicer. The restaurants are nicer.
The one good thing about making movies is that you get to go live in the place for a long time, as opposed to doing one-nighters, which we did for 10 years, you know.
Are you going to be turning your back on America completely for a while?
No, I just live here as long as it takes to make the movie, and then I go back to L.A.
Cheech and Chong, you can put them anywhere, and they're still going to be Cheech and Chong.
Just ahead, David Bowie goes on tour and the fans line up for tickets.
And Harry Belafonte, he's hot on the concert circuit and not so hot about the movies he's been offered. The big music news this week is that David Bowie's American tour, which doesn't get underway until July 15th, is already sold out. Tickets in Los Angeles, Bowie's last stop, were snapped up in record time. Catherine Mann was in line.
There was a colorful crowd at the LA Forum Monday morning lining up for tickets to David Bowie's concerts on August 14th and 15th. LA is the last stop on Bowie's North American tour. The concert dates were announced over the weekend, and it only took 90 minutes on Monday to sell out more than 36,000 tickets.
It's exactly as I anticipated. There would be no difficulty in selling 4 nights, and if we could just convince David, we'd like to do it.
It's been 5 years since David Bowie's last concert in Los Angeles, and since he'll only be performing 2 nights this time, many of these fans have been waiting all night to buy tickets.
I've liked David Bowie since I've been about 7. I've been waiting to see him ever since. Last time he was in town, I wasn't quite old enough to go.
I seen him at the Oz Festival. It was really good and stuff. You know, I'd like to see him again.
He's so sexy. How long are you willing to wait?
Forever if I have to see him again.
Bowie tickets in L.A. were priced as high as $16.50. But some fans told us the scalpers will be charging as much as $200.
The long legal battle between RCA Records and Elvis Presley's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, was finally settled out of court this week. Parker got $2 million for his right to all future income from Presley Records, a sum many music business insiders consider to be surprisingly low.
Harry Belafonte, the man who made calypso music a hit, is still packing them in concerts. But he isn't making movies or appearing much on television. Dale Haramoto found out why.
I feel the trembling tingle of a sleepless night.
At age 56, Harry Belafonte's musical career is still going strong. Since his recording debut in the early 50s with the calypso sound, Belafonte has sold millions of albums. He's also made a number of films, Odds Against Tomorrow, The World, the Flesh, and the Devil, and Buck and the Preacher, which he personally produced. But Belafonte hasn't made a film since Uptown Saturday Night in 1974. We haven't seen you in the movies in a long time. Why is that?
Well, I think there are two reasons for that. One is that those people who direct the current attitudes of the motion picture industry have not expressed too deep an interest in my services. The ones who have, more often than not, offer me things that I find without dignity. We're constantly being asked to either be a token representative in a film or some secondary character that I find terribly, terribly unsatisfying. As a consequence, I opt to stay on tour. I opt to go to theaters where I have more control over what I have to say. I can impart information to people whom I feel need to hear the kinds of things that I sing about.
And I wonder if you know that I never understood.
I'd love to do films. I'd love to do television. I'd love to do plays. But if they don't come along and say something of substance, then what's the point?
Just this month, the issue of black employment in Hollywood was brought before a congressional subcommittee. Sidney Poitier was among the panel of actors who asked for a thorough investigation into Hollywood hiring practices, which they claim almost totally exclude minorities.
I'm somewhat skeptical about what will come of it, because the illness of the industry in relationship to minority causes is so insidious and runs so deeply that I challenge whether or not our politicians have the stamina or the heart or the courage to go and to really shake up the industry and do something about it.
Because of the way you feel, would you consider getting into politics?
I am in politics, but I'm in politics through my art. And I think that I do my constituency and the people of the world who are interested in what I have to say an infinitely greater service, using my art as a political force and as a social force, than to become part of any political machinery or of any particular party.
How do you think your life and career would have been different if you had been everything you are but white?
I would have been president.
On Monday's show, Jamie Lee Curtis makes the switch from horror films to comedy.
And Leonard Maltin reviews The Survivors.
Finally, here's a revealing footnote to that serious story on the AIDS benefit we showed you earlier. It all began when Debbie Reynolds issued a challenge that Shirley Maclaine just couldn't resist.
Show them your legs, Shirley? Okay.
I guess you can say we really covered that story, didn't we?
More or less.
Yeah.
Well, believe it or not, you'll see even more of Shirley on Entertainment Tonight next week as Ron Hindren and Mary Hart bring you a daily supply of show business news and features.
Also on tap next week, Rita Coolidge, the Oak Ridge Boys, Sean Cassidy, plus Leonard Maltin reviewing new movies starring Burt Reynolds and Robin Williams. And that's it for us. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.